Hello, everyone. It is Suzanne Worthley back with my co-host Kim Hess. Hey,
Hello.
you
Hi.
you've been on vacation, girl. We haven't seen each other in a while.
I know. It's gone so fast. I can't believe it.
I know you were out trouncing around the West Coast, kind of, sort of.
Yeah. Went into Las Vegas, saw a couple of shows, did
Nice.
some fun things, and then we went up to Utah, Penguich, Utah. Went through Zion National Park.
Oh
But
man,
I went with a bunch of ladies that are everybody quilts. So we made a quilt. It was really
that
fun.
such a lost art and so incredible. And that was your first time,
First
right?
quilt. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Were you awesome?
I did really well. It was almost like I had my grandmother over my shoulder going, keep
Yeah,
the seam straight. You're like, um,
channeling, yeah,
yeah,
channeling grandma. That's
yeah.
awesome.
She was the one that
Cool.
taught me how to sew, so that was really fun.
Good. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Energy Unleashed. This is where I take some of my client sessions as an energy practitioner and share some of their details. And then we toss it Kim's way to kind of unleash it or dig into it a little bit deeper and kind of like expand on the subject matter. And this one I'm kind of excited to talk about because Kim has actually experienced some of these elemental nature things, and we'll get into that in just a second. But this particular client I've had for quite some time now, and he does some amazing work. And I was fortunate enough to go to his home one time and do a land and home clearing as well. And he lives in Minnesota out in the rural areas. And he's got this just awesome, incredible property with these really, really powerful trees. He's got a whole grove of the maple trees where he does the syrup. He's got this fantastic, gigantic boulder that he sits on to do sky watching at night. He's got his own little pond. I mean, it just goes on. And it was just absolutely fascinating. And so over the last couple of years, especially since the 2020 time period when a lot of us were kind of hunkering down and deciding how to maybe be more self-sustainable and such, he started some really amazing gardens and spaces out in his fields to do things. And he's been sending me pictures as he progressed. And yesterday I did a full session on him, and his garden came through so strong. And that's what we're going to get into in a second here. He also has an area that has this large, big, kind of like open field. And this is the beautiful part of, like I said, rural Minnesota, where there's nobody building still. And the farmland is so still pristine, and it feels good and it feels safe. And this particular gentleman really resonates with the earth energies. And so I've been encouraging him to decide a couple of places where he would first and foremost like to open a portal if he chose to. So that's what I want to get into first, Kim, and then we're going to jump into the second part about the garden. But what I did is I brought forward the concept of activating your land. And I think this is something that anybody can do, but we also want to do it carefully. We don't want to run around willy-nilly opening portals without us knowing
No,
what we're
you said
doing.
open a portal, and I'm like, ooh, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And actually, that's what he did, almost identical with his little hands. He's like, ooh, I don't know. And I said, no, if you are working in alignment with your highest and best good and the Deva elemental nature energies, the Deva elemental nature energies, meaning the Deva are the energy of the tree, the grasses, the rocks, etc. So what he was asking for was to get more connected to his lineage line, his heritage, the actual earth heritage, etc. And so if we open a portal, he picked a beautiful spot that he thought out in the middle of this field, and he identified it and marked it with some really pile of rocks so that we could talk further about it. And my encouragement to him was to first and foremost make sure that you're wanting to work with an intentional space within you, that you are clear, that you are balanced, that you are grounded, and you're coming with set intention for this. It's not willy-nilly, like I said. And I encouraged him also to kind of block out the actual sacred circle, meaning find your true north, south, east, west, and block it out with some rocks. And he has some huge, gigantic boulders that he loves to work with. And he is now identifying the actual lines of the actual, maybe we would call it a sacred circle, but basically lots of times it's a square because we're going the lines of north, south, east, and west, which you can pull in the elements like the air, the water, the land, the fire, and or we can pull in the archangels, which is Raphael from east, Michael from south, Gabriel from west, Uriel from north, and then Metatron up above, Sandalphon down below. So we can make that sort of cubed sacred energy for any time we're doing any ongoing work, we want to secure that actual sacred circle and then ask the portal to almost open up so that we can have the energy of the earth come outward and the energy of the cosmos come inward and work collectively. So a vortex mostly is coming out of the land. So we can use sometimes interchangeable words, even though energetically they're two different things. We can talk about the energy coming out of the land, what is stored in the land, what is the heritage, what is the akash of that field, etc. And then we can also feel that we are pulling in any angelics, any helpers, any Davic energies, so that we're working in this sacred space that's very intentional. And then we intent what we would like. And when we are finished with gratitude, we again intentionally close that portal so it's not open continuously. Because if I'm leaving it open, all kinds of things can happen because it's not being monitored. That's like leaving your house completely open and you're not in the greatest neighborhood sometimes, you know? So we want to make sure that we're locking it back down again and then gratifying and leaving that space by cutting our cords. Mm-hmm. So does that make a little sense?
It does. Yeah. It's so I was just thinking about the lake because there's a spot in the lake where our cabin is that I put crystals out. And I'm thinking about how awesome it would be to have a portal right there.
Right.
Or to work with that. Because I was attracted to that spot, but also it's surrounded by oak trees.
Yeah.
So I know we'll talk about that a little later, but so if I'm intentionally opening that up I usually use the archangels, but you can use the elements and the archangels.
I use kind of all of it. Yeah.
It's all together. It's all together, but so I would intention what I want and what kinds of things would I do in that portal? Like what?
In his instance, he wanted more actual, his past life feels are really more connected to the planet, the earth, as more of an indigenous. Okay. He has a lot of past life memories or feel memories in his actual meat and bone existences on planet that were more like kind of like either Native American or really indigenous, more like the Mayan or something along those lines. And so I think when we are working with this kind of an intention, we can say, is there any information that I can glean from these past lives that's for my highest and best? And I want to point something out that's super important, in my opinion. When we're working with a past life, we only want a read-only file, like a PDF that you can't edit and change. Right. And I've said this before, and I'll say it anytime we're talking about a past life download. We do not want the emotional, mental, and especially physical file to come into this existence, because technically speaking, this is not that life. I am not that life. I am not that Native American. I am Suzanne sitting here in 2023 or whatever. We don't want to transfer all that information, but we would like the knowledge. And so specifying that I want information only, which is for my highest and best good at this time. Now, I could say, I would like to understand the land more. I would like the land to open up to me. I would like to expand my psychic skills and feeling the energies of the land. I would like to maybe expand my psychic skills into the Akash, meaning the records that are held on my land. So his land, when I did the session, I was getting a lot of information, just even remote. And his land kept saying, I want to play. And we've been so dormant and no one loves us out here anymore. And there's no fun. There's no fun in this field anymore. We like to play like children. And I was telling him all this and he started laughing. And I said, what's so funny? And he said, my neighbor, who's quite elderly compared to him, grew up on his farm across the way. And they used to play softball in that, or baseball or whatever, in that field when they were young kids. And he said, that was the field where all the kids played. And I said, see? So the land itself is consciousness, remember, and it wants to feel that joy factor just like anything else. So be aware of that, because we just think it's like a bunch of trees and rocks and dirt, and it's not. Right?
No. And you can also use, I would assume, because this is what I was thinking, is that to clear yourself, like to use that portal to, if you're feeling bogged down and just not like stagnant, you'd be able to use that portal to also do some work on your energy fields. And
portals can bring it in from your higher source energy, from your angelics, from your helpers. They can bring that into you to raise your vibration. But the vortex energy, which is also different. Vortex energy, we know, like in Sedona, for example, some are magnetic, some are electric. meaning some really pull from the earth and some really pull from above. So some are really like that grounded feeling, some are that electrical feeling. Mostly when we're talking vortex, though, it is more of that magnetic coming from the earth itself. And to me, the portal energy feels much more electric. So again, we can ask the earth itself, the core of the earth mantle, the rocks, the minerals, please go through the vibrational frequency of my own vehicle right now, my body today, and clear anything that no longer serves me. And, meld my minerals with yours and make sure that I'm in alignment with this planetary connection, etc. So yes, for sure, we want to use the knowledge, the wisdom, and the power of our planet and our cosmos to be able to work with our physical and emotional mental vehicle here, because that's what raises us spiritually.
Your mention of minerals, that's so fascinating because I'm doing this whole program cleanse thing. So there's all kinds of natural products that I'm using for the supplements.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're short on magnesium or like any of the main minerals that your body really needs to function well,
yep,
that could be really amazing to hear. Like you need more of this type of
right.
plant or this type of mineral.
And you can do it in a 3D way, meaning like you're doing it. I can eat the mineral, I can take a capsule or a supplement, etc. Or you can download it if you are in that belief system.
I pulled this out this morning. This is so funny. This card deck, it's called Herbal Healing.
Oh, nice.
And the cards look like this. Like I pulled out the tree because we were going to eventually talk about trees.
Cool.
This is the oak tree.
That's beautiful.
But each one gets into how these plants and minerals actually help your body. And so I use them as an oracle card deck, and I'll pull out. It's like, oh, I need more turmeric, or I need basil in my diet.
Right, and you can download it. You don't have to eat it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's beautiful. I think I said on a recent podcast or something that I had just recorded that I download ayahuasca as well, because I don't care to do the ayahuasca root ceremony. It's just not my thing. But I will work with the Davic energies of the ayahuasca plant for plant medicine. So we can just download it and connect to it and get the information to the healing. So these are all things that come with experimentation, practice, faith, right? I mean, this is all about trusting. And it's all about creative imagination. And again, I'd like to point out imagination in this entire world of everything we talk about in these podcasts are critical in that the brain works through imagination to become reality. We are co-creators and holographic anyway. And this is how the brain works. If I imagine, a lot of people go, well, I'm just making it up. I'm imagining it. And I'm like, good, because then that's the first step in. Right. So yes, imagine that I'm feeling the energy of that tree, that root, that basil, and I am eating it, downloading it, whatever, because the more that we practice in that regard, the more it becomes an actual skill set. So a lot of people don't think that they have the capability, and indeed we do when we change that paradigm, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm learning.
Yeah. So the vortexual energy is so interesting because to me, we can sit out in Sedona, for example, and we can feel that grounding energy of some of those vortexes. This is what this gentleman can create. If he's having a really spazzy, stressed week or day, he can go sit on his rock altar in the middle of his portal vortex, whatever he wants to call it at this point, and he can ground himself into the earth, or he can sit there, lock into the earth and pour down from the cosmos portal wise too. So it's a exchange of energy. He's not transporting, it's not taking him somewhere. That's something different. This is you're kind of just using the energy from the two realms to kind of get you a better balance in what it is and or information on what you're choosing to intend. So I think the most important part is yes, you can do it, but do it with respect.
Oh, yeah.
And please follow the so-called not rules, but follow the protocols that make this safe. Because when we leave something open, this is something equivalent or akin to a Ouija board situation. When I do something like a Ouija board and I open a portal, okay, we don't know that we've opened it. We don't know what slipped through. We don't know how to contain that or control that. And we certainly sometimes don't know how to close it when it's open. So we don't want to get to those kinds of things where we're using collective energies of others that are kind of in the way of the protocol procedures of your sacred space. So in my opinion, I keep those pretty private. And we know places like Sedona have 8 million people tromping through vortexes. It gets pretty messy out there, right? So these are serious energetic things that we're talking about, not just something flippant.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's nothing to mess around with. You need to be very aware of what you're doing.
But there's a plus side for the planet as well, because our, again, planet has been dominant. I'm not dominant, dormant. It's been dormant, not dominant. It's been dormant in energy and energy signatures and ley lines and communications within itself. And it is just coming back online, kind of like a supercomputer getting a reboot of a better program. That's actually what's happening to the Earth planet itself in terms of the inner energy lines. And so when we're activating our land, this is actually very important, not just for what we're doing on the land, but for the land and the planet itself as well, because it's waking it up to have connectivity with all of us, which then includes oneness. So moving into the next section on him, what we talked about, I got a ton of information from his guidance in terms of his garden. And his garden, he is starting right now in a greenhouse. He has a little hothouse, which is an awesome opportunity. And he showed me a picture the other day that was adorable. He's sitting there. You know how you do the picture with your feet on the beach and you're sitting in the chair and then it shows the beach? Okay, it's his feet on the chair and it shows all of his plants. And he's holding my new book, The Confident Empath, on his lap. And he goes, "This is where I read your book every day." And I'm like, that was to die for. I loved it. Really cute little promo. But I was talking to his plants in the actual area. And it was funny because they said that he is, quote unquote, a steward of this land. And I love that word. I don't hear it very often. And I think when it is put forward, the person may want to take that very seriously, because that's a well-deserved title from someone that knows the frequency and the opportunity of the land itself. And when he was told that he was a steward of the land, they want him to actually activate this garden this year more so than he's ever done. He's had it a couple of years, but it's kind of changing and growing each year. And he's getting a little ahead of the game this year and kind of hothousing and getting it in real soon in the ground. So again, what they said is an extension of what this portal information was. They asked him to be very diligent, placing crystals around the entire garden. And people can learn from this if they choose, that they can toss whatever on these things. But it might be something to consider for your own garden, because the crystals, when you're burying the crystals, and they don't all need to be clear, but selenite seems to be a really favorite for the land also. Clear crystals work awesome. Obviously, rose quartzes are beautiful, but any kind of a crystal will activate. I like the clear thought of it, especially the selenite, because it cleanses and clears and anchors all at the same time, especially land spaces. And so they wanted him to anchor not only the corners, but the sides, almost again like a sacred space, right? And I thought that that was super cool. They wanted the frequency to actually come up, which I thought was really neat. Then they said that they wanted him to extend some of the vibrational gifts like music, vibration, color, all kinds of sound, and change the music up so that the actual plants are almost dancing to the sound vibration, which I thought was such a beautiful vision, right? I mean, how adorable to sit there imagining that your little radishes are shaking it, when they're hearing the music. It's adorable, right? So I thought that that was beautiful. And then it said, and please consider praying over the water as it's spraying. So praying as it's spraying was really an awesome thought too. And they said, and in return, we will gift you larger yields. And when I told him that, he was like, that's what his face did. He went, what? Because Suzanne, you can't believe this. And I'm like, what? And he goes, I think he did say the radishes. Yeah. He said, my radishes are already this big and they're in the hothouse. They're not even in the ground. And I said, see? So I think this is going to be a wonderful personal experiment for him to see how much he can push himself to connect with source, to be able to have the faith and the trust that source is working through him, through the ground, through the plants, etc., to make real visual changes in a physical way. And I think it's going to be super exciting.
Well, when you hear about people that are really into gardening, they also talk to their plants. They, it's a vibrational exchange, with their plants. And they're very gentle and respectful, and it's always so. I'm amazed that people have that gift.
And it's scientifically proven. We know that. I mean, we know that it works. That is one thing they told him, is to take the things from the hothouse or any plants that he's actually, before he puts them into the ground, hold the plant and ask the plant where it wants to be on the patch. Don't assume that you want tomatoes over here and zucchini over here, because he has everything. I mean, you name it, he's planting it. So the guidance said, hold the plant to your chest, either use your body like a pendulum, moving forward for yes or whatever, walk the actual patches of land and ask here, 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 and your body will know because it wants to be next to whomever and however it wants to be, not what you want it to be.
That's so fascinating.
I
I
thought that
love
was really
I
interesting.
mean, planting flowers, you can do the same thing,
Yeah.
and asking actually what is the soil missing, and then what needs to be added, and
And how can I do it holistically? And what is the difference between me just, not using just slamming out that Miracle Girl and putting all those chemicals on things versus is there anything in a holistic way that I can do? And
Mhm.
I thought that that was super cool too.
Yeah.
So then he stepped further into the elemental kingdom, which he actually can pull very easy too with the way that this particular client is. And the elemental kingdom in this regard would be the 2D elements of the Davic energies of like the fairies, the gnomes, the little critters that run around, and the animals also, by the way, to kind of like hold the space for that area. And I have a wonderful deck that I use a lot when I do that kind of fairy energy, and it's Brian Froud. Let me pull it back here. It's the fairy, and it's that FEARIE or I. It's the fairy. What does that say? Fairy Oracle. Oh, it
Yeah.
says Heart of the Fairy. It's backwards and it's weird
I
writing.
know,
So
isn't that funny?
I'm like, wait a
We can
minute.
we can see it the right way, but the heart of the
Yeah.
fairy oracle.
Yeah, Heart of the Fairy Oracle. But this book has got killer cards and really cool messages. But when we're working with these fairy elements, and I do training in elementals, I want to be clear that they're not necessarily Tinkerbell. However, sometimes the flower fairies do really look like a Tinkerbell. But the fairies in this regard can almost even look a little spooky and kind of like almost, and they're not demonic by any means. They're just nasty looking little nature sprites and spirits, but they're not necessarily nasty. But I want to point out that they can kind of throw you for a curve because this is their element. This is what they look like.
Mhm.
And it isn't always like the pretty little Tinkerbells. And so we want to make sure that we check in. And if we see something that startles us, your best bet is to always go, are you for my highest and best? Or are you of the light working with me, etc. And if we're really worried, we can say that 3 times because Trinity voice always works in terms of 3 times. And then you got to go if you're not for my highest and best. And it will follow that per universal law. But I think for him, what came through super strong was Green Man. And Green Man is the actual element that looks very similar to this. And he is the essence of the tree itself. Oftentimes they'll show the leaves being different colors for the different versions of Green Man, meaning, he'll change in the fall, etc. But this is a very powerful one for him because his trees and his groves of trees, especially the ones that he's already blessed and worked with for many years regarding this maple syrup, love him. And he's talking also about the card that you pulled looks similar to using an oak tree as what we would call a gatekeeper, so that Green Man and the oak tree itself can be considered a gatekeeper. So what that means is we can plant that oak tree on that portal site, and or we can also plant something around the perimeter or within the garden area. This gatekeeper is about, I am going to hold this space tight until it is, and it's safe, and it's in the genie in the bottle until you come in and work in a sacred, intentful way, and then I will allow it to happen. But the gatekeeper is monitoring who and what goes in and out of that. And gatekeepers can be very, very strong, and they can be just about anything that you propose. It can be a geometric, it can be your dead grandma, it can be anything that you want it to be. But in this particular instance, it was asking for a tree and Green Man for him. So I know that you have had experience with Green Man, and you said just recently again.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
The first time was when we were in Montezuma in Arizona. There's a really old, hundreds and hundreds of years old tree. And I put my hands and forehead on the tree and I saw Green Man like right away.
Yeah.
And it was so emotional and it was so loving.
Yeah.
That's what was just through me. I had no idea, and now with trees, I get a lot of that emotion. So I share love with them. They share love back. But we were in Utah and we went to see a friend's cabin by a lake, and they were gorgeous ponderosa pine trees. And they smell so good, but they're huge. And so I put my hand and closed my eyes, on the tree, And he came back again. It was so cool. Like, I'm sending you love, and I'm so grateful
Does
you're here.
does he look the same every time, or does he
He
kind of
looks
change it up?
very similar to the picture that you have, because I was looking
Yeah,
at pictures this morning, and
yeah, yeah,
it just throws me, because I'm like, there he is. Oh my gosh. I just,
yeah.
I love it. And the feeling I get from him is very one, continue to bring your love kind of a thing, but it swarms me in love. Like, it's that grounding, loving feeling that I have after I see him.
Yeah, it's kind of like enveloping
It
for
does.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always amazing. I really enjoy it. But like at the cabin, when we were looking at buying the cabin, I know that I was like, leaned up on the tree, and I'm like, should we be here? And it was absolutely yes. Absolutely.
And these are things everybody can do if they
Everybody.
have the want, not that you
Yeah.
have to. There's nothing right or wrong about any of this, but do not think that someone has to be gifted to be able to get information from a tree, because you already are gifted. Our body is the gift.
Well, there's so
And
much
when
to learn about
right when we
trees.
meld with it, we can get
Yeah.
the information. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
And
else do you learn from a tree?
one, when I'm feeling um like more chaotic, or like I'm just not quite all with myself, walking outside barefoot and sitting by a tree, or just leaning up against a tree, will always help bring me back into my
Okay.
body. And it happens when, some of my habits or whatever, I get out of whack. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to go back outside.
Right.
But you can see the energy of trees. I
Yes.
learned how to do that. Like, especially in the evening, you can totally see the aura around trees, and you can actually see energy moving back and forth from trees.
Yep.
But one of the things that came up in a healing session for me recently is I need to learn how trees communicate.
Hmm.
And the book that was recommended is The Hidden Life of Trees. And I just
Oh,
got this
cool.
in the mail, like while I was gone. And so I'm going to read that, because it goes into how they communicate, how they feel, how they communicate. So, yeah,
That's a great, put that artwork up for one more second, if you would. The way that they're communicating is not only through the leaf connection of their auric fields, but they're also communicating through the root system of each other's. The oneness is like a collective grid pattern that they interact in a circuitry. So it goes through the circuitry of the root system. And then additionally, it goes through the auric field, mostly on the tops and the edges of the leaves and the trees on top. And so there's two levels of communications when we're talking with trees. And it's quite fascinating. Not that the trunk isn't working as well, but it's almost, this would be like a similar to a portal of sorts. Like the top is the electric, the bottom is the magnetic actual conversation going on, if that makes some
right.
sense. It's a great visual of that book. So thanks for showing that. I
Yeah.
did a whole project, and I've mentioned this on some things before too, probably just vibe tribe things, where I was asked as a healer to do some work on a bunch of trees that were in threat or danger of being cut down for a rail system
Mhm.
in Minneapolis. And I specifically went in and activated root systems and activated auric fields so that they can communicate and band together, almost like almost like you'd see people in a human chain going, no, you're not coming through and ripping this
Yep.
building down, like that. And we banded the trees, and it was the most phenomenal work, and all of us could feel the power of it. It was so crazy. And so these things are very powerful, and they hold a lot of information. And in that case, the project did fall apart and never happened, which I thought was beautiful. So it's important for us to gratify these things and to go into them, like you're saying, and exchange information. But it's also great to just simply learn. And sometimes when I'm up at the cabin and I look at the trees, oftentimes I will just take a chair out, or I will just sit on something and stare. And I will say to the tree, what is it that I want to learn from you today? What is it that you can show me that would benefit me or my life? I don't even have to have a question. I can just learn from something, and I will watch. And if the wind comes along, one of my favorite things that I learn is how the sturdiness of the tree, especially the oaks or the big ones up there, the sturdiness of the trunk is so completely grounded, and yet the flexibility is everywhere. And those pines up there where our cabin is, you can just bend like this and then doink. And the flexibility while still staying grounded was one of the lessons that I learned ages ago in terms of grounding to this planet. Being grounded doesn't mean that you're not inflexible. It means that you're completely flexible and you can go with the flow. So this is when we incorporate that water element into the earth element flow. is water and it's more female element. And that grounding is very, heavy duty, fixed feeling, and it's not. So the top of the tree can really remind us of that flow, flexibility, roll with the punches, all of that. And it's so cool. Birds and animals in the tree can teach us tons and tons as well. And it's just funny that if you leave it open, the curriculum is never ending because they have a lot to say, right?
They're so just fascinating to me. So I'm excited to read this book because
yeah, I actually have heard about that book by a couple other people. It's supposed to be excellent. You'll have to let us know. And then additionally, each tree has its own vibrational frequency as well. So that's another game to play in your yard or the park or out in the woods or whatever, if you choose to, is understand the frequencies of each of the actual trees. And then when one wants to really practice, if they choose, they can merge into the actual essence or deva of the tree. And I've done this several times up north as well, where you sit, but this takes a long time to practice and patience, and you do get irritated and frustrated, and then you think you're making it up. But again, go for it. But I've literally felt myself disappear right into the bark of the tree, to the extent that you feel like, oh my God, all of a sudden I think my face is full of bark. And then all of a sudden your crown is growing so high that you actually can astrally see off the top of the leaves, even though you're sitting on the base of the forest. Wow. And you can feel that essence so much. And then you can feel the coolness as your bottom half of your body is going into the ground. It's a fascinating merging of frequencies. And I've done it probably a handful of times up there. It does take practice. And once you do it, you get so excited that you usually lose it.
I know, right?
Because you're like, oh my God.
No, do it again. Do it again.
I think I'm nuts. I think I'm crazy. But I think that you can pull yourself back in and just breathe through it. But that is a super fun technique that I've done with several of the different elements, but trees are one of my favorites. So
yeah, no, trees are everywhere I go. I just am I was actually walking through Boston, the main park out there, whatever, walking around. I'm walking really fast. And all of a sudden I heard, hey, and I'm like, what? I turn around, there's nobody there. It was this old tree that had like a man face on it.
Oh my God.
He just, and it was like, hey, and then it was slow down.
That's funny.
Or whatever. And I texted my dad about it. He's like, are you nuts?
It reminds me of the scene in The Wizard of Oz when all of a sudden the trees come along and they start whipping their own apples at Dorothy. That's right. That reminds me of that. Hey, slow down.
Hey.
Yeah. Well, and gratifying is half of the job of our humanity. Half of the job of us being here is to guardian the planet, which means we can fuel those elements and elemental bodies by just being grateful and being connected. And this is their food from us. And I think that helps heart chakra for us and keeps us grounded to the planet. And these are things, in my opinion, we should learn as a kid, but nobody talks about them. So
I know,
it's never too late.
To talk never to a tree as a kid, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
But I have a question for you. So things have changed a lot in the vibration, especially activating Earth, right? There's a lot going on there. So some of the techniques and things I used to do don't work the same anymore, like in participating in what this is. And I think a lot of this energy is taking a toll, like really been pummeling my body a little bit. So there's the cosmic and Earth, all a lot going on. How do we I guess I want people to know that things are different, because I was feeling kind of numb for a while. Like I wasn't feeling the same things anymore. And it's because the flow of my body and the things that are changing with the cosmic and Earth are all changing. I was having to revisit and figure this out. Like, works.
Everything is, remember, we're the cookie filling in between the two sandwiches, right? Mm-hmm. We're the little white stuff in between the two cookies. And we're getting hammered from the cosmic, which is that electric, and the magnetic of the planet constantly. The magnetic is from the Schumann resonance going through the roof, the vibrational frequency or heartbeat of the planet itself is just kicking our butt. And then the cosmic rays, the CMEs, the mass injections that are coming off of the actual sun itself, the coronals, are coming in, and those are almost like standing in a puddle with your finger in the socket, right? So these are actually downloading codes and information into our body. We're not aware of that unless we're really following this work. But to most people, it just feels like I'm fried, I'm tired, I can't get grounded, I'm foggy, I'm disoriented, I can't get anything done. I mean, these are really big code in downloads, and then key codes will open up things inside of us So remember, we're math equations. And if I'm getting a new math equation, all my old school math has to change. Remember when we did long division, like the big 7, and you went the numbers all the way down the side, and then it went to the quick math? Your body's kind of like going from the old math to the new math in terms of calibration and frequency and resonance. So this is a time to honor the actual inner knowing of, gosh, I don't normally ever take a nap, and I'm taking one every day, if not twice. This is crazy. And it's not that I'm sick or falling apart or old. It's that because I'm recalibrating and doing my best to integrate. Most people are not giving themselves enough time and ease and grace to reintegrate to these energies because nobody talks about the seriousness of this happening, at least not in mainstream media. So if, good old World News Tonight said to everybody at 5 and 6 o'clock, hey, I would really encourage you to take as many naps as you need to, and it's okay. Everyone would be, oh, okay, now I can do it, but this is personal responsibility in terms of really monitoring your own self and knowing what is good for your meat and bone existence right now. And that may indeed be slowing down and napping. It may be changing your diet because your food is different. You don't have the capacity to actually digest the food the same any longer. Not only are you changing, but the planetary structure that is housing the growth of the food is changing. We are no longer going to be tolerating the things like chemicals like we have in the past. Right. The human body, as it elevates, that's a higher frequency. Chemicals in our food is a lower frequency. So we're going to be doing a lot of fighting. And this is why people are doing much more self-sustainability, growing their own food, etc., because we want to be able to monitor that, right? And keep them cleaner. So this is changing. Our grounding techniques are changing. Many of us used to ground with that concept of the tree. I'm going to go in, I'm going to root into the planet. Many people who are absolutely higher in frequency now get claustrophobic when they're in that state because the planet inside feels too small now because she is actually integrating into the cosmos. So we don't want to ever feel claustrophobic in our grounding. We can lock into that core of Mother Earth itself, but then do more of a toroidal, way big into the universal energies, or toroidal in this regard. So think of it like, look up a toroid and see what that looks like so that you can expand your grounding into bigger ways and yet still feel locked into your body in a sense of safe versus a sense of claustrophobia. Right. Okay, so those are different. I think headaches and ascension symptoms and nausea and all that stuff is through the roof. Eyes are changing dramatically. Ears, teeth, oh my God. Teeth are insane right now because the teeth are the vibrational frequencies that we're getting pummeled with. I also up and down my whole entire mouth for days and days can go crazy, and then I'm fine, and then I'm crazy, and then I'm fine. Teeth hold records, actual Akashic records of your entire life, and they start in the front where your baby teeth come in. This is your baby information, and as you progressively age, your files are in the back of your mouth. Be aware of that. These are getting hammered right now because they want the release of your own individual life files to go back to the Akasha as well. So if your teeth are aching, do better on releasing your old files of your memory because they're still there. You just don't want them housed in your mouth. So these are really crazy things that are happening to us. And the great news is it's not going to get better anytime soon. That doesn't sound like great news, but it truly is because that means we're changing at a rapid pace. That's so the bad news is it's not going to change anytime soon.
You sound like my Bohemian grandmother. It can only get worse from here. I'm like, what? Wait, it's supposed to be can only get better from here. Like,
yeah, and that's actually in terms of the the change in the planet. This is good. One last thing that I would like to mention as a practitioner, I do follow my client base pretty closely to see how their so-called spin is in their rotational field of their chakras and their auric field. The old spin factor that actually reversed was this year in January 24th of 2023. And the inner core earth mantle switched from a patriarchal male energy going clockwise, stopped and reversed its rotational spin to a counterclockwise, which is the female godmother energy, and locking us into that female quotient of the planet itself. So this is something also, if you feel that you're spinning the wrong way, get some help to fix that from a practitioner or do it yourself in terms of just visualizing. My field is going counterclockwise. And if you can see your chakras and you're confused on why they're going so-called backwards, they're not if they're going counter now. So those are all some really big highlights and tidbits to think of. And most of the time we're not dying, but we think we are during this process. We lose our marbles, run off to the doctor, and then we really get scared because they can't find anything. Oh my God, now I really am dying. Yeah.
You're fine.
9 out of 10 times, if not 12 out of 10 times, it's the ascension symptoms. And so do your best to, stay hydrated, lots of good water. I do a lot of lemon in my water just to keep the citrus up in me. And I'm doing more water than ever lately. All I do is run to the bathroom, I swear. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do to change your whole world and stay grounded. But it takes work like anything else, right?
It does. And it's easy to lose focus on that, but you just have to keep, moving through it.
Well, nobody has to do anything, just pointing out we get to if we choose to. And this is a choice. You will make a choice when you start to decide, personally speaking, I don't have to do any of this, but boy, does it feel good when I do. This is the self-responsibility level that I think we're all getting to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
There's a lot of it going on around us for sure.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else from you on that Deva stuff, that garden stuff? I think it sounds pretty awesome. I'm so excited to see his yield.
Oh, I know. I want to know. He's going to have to take some pictures because,
Yeah.
and I bet everything just tastes so much better after going through it.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that we've both been cleansing, and I told Kim earlier when we were chatting when she was on the road, I can taste the food differently. I can taste food. I mean, it's crazy. And I'm a salt freak, and I stopped salting everything like crazy. And the difference, food was so boring at first. And now it's like, wow, I can actually taste that. So these are all new things for this body.
It is. It's amazing how much, and I can smell and taste the chlorine in water if it's not filtered.
Yes.
That was amazing to me because I didn't notice it before.
Yeah, so get your Brita or your whatever that big one is that you have at the
Berkey.
cabin, Berkey or whatever it is. Those are super important right now, and it's only going to get more important because our water is a resource we want to be careful of. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. I hope that helps everybody with some tidbits and ideas. Take what resonates, toss the rest. And on behalf of Kim, I appreciate you watching these. We do our best to help educate you. Please find anything else that we do on sworthley.com. We do all kinds of things with our Vibe Tribe membership. Kim's very involved with that as well. It's a super cool membership to be able to support your journey, and it comes out monthly. We appreciate you liking this video and sharing this video. And
leave comments. We want to hear the comments. Everybody's pretty quiet on these things. So
and share them off. And we're Instagramming now, or at least I am Instagramming now with little tidbits of these as well. So if we keep the message going, hopefully it'll get out there. And last but not least, please check out my book, Confident Empath, that just launched last week. I appreciate all the support and sharing the ideas. So until next time, everybody, Cosmic Hugs.
Bye.
Bye-bye.